It's been a minute since we posted a video, and we have taken some videos, but we haven't gotten them up. So I thought I would share that the Farmers Exchange newspaper has some really great articles on local agricultural happenings, and they cover over 20 county fairs. And our family got the Farmers Exchange growing up, and my dad read it every week and tried to get it when it was first possibly out in the store. He would go pick it up and look through it. And this is the copy from February 24th, so this is a little bit of old news, but I wanted to allow people to have their time with their copy and not steal anybody's thunder. But there just so happens to be an article on the front page. I was always told to stay off the front page, but I thought I would share it with you because it was a really great experience meeting Carolina Keegan, who is the reporter that rode with us, and the feature she is writing was called A Mile in His or Her Shoes, and she's been spending time with local people in agriculture and working on getting to better understand what jobs in agriculture are in our community. So Carolina rode with us on February 1st, and she spent a lot of time asking great questions, and I thought she was going to freeze because she is an itty-bitty youngin', and I would not have survived wearing thin layers, but she was a trooper. It was a very cold day, and I would encourage anybody, if you are contacted by her about your business, job, training, farm, whatever you do, to follow through, because it was really delightful to have her along. So without further ado, here is her story that she published in Farmers Exchange, and I'll try to add in some insights here and there. So, Life of a Veterinarian, Long Days, Lots of Education by Carolina Keegan. I met with a farm animal veterinarian on February 1st and literally spent the day in her shoes. The rubber boot covers she loaned me help maintain biosecurity and are an essential part of a veterinarian's wardrobe. Here is what I learned after walking in the shoes of a Michiana farm animal veterinarian. It was 8 a.m. when I arrived at Crossroads Food Animal Veterinary Service office in White Pigeon, Michigan. Walking in, I was immediately greeted by Dr. Emily Blough with a sign that read, "Welcome pets, oh, and humans too." That was the doing of Tana, who worked for us for a period of time, and we left it, but really everyone's welcome here. After some brief introductions, Dr. Blough, her 20-year-old assistant Taylor Martin, and I were off. Martin, a Goshen native, is planning to attend veterinary school. Our first stop was at a New Paris farm where a new goat owner was unsure how to properly care for goat feet and avoid injuring them. Dr. Blough said she does her best to both educate clients and meet their needs for animal care. This is in quotations. One thing we do well and I enjoy is we work with a lot of people who are new to farming or 4-H, Dr. Blough said. When we arrived, it was 7 degrees and wide patches of ice spread across the ground. The goats, Nellie and Mo, did not seem to like trimmers on their toes. Martin held the goats as Dr. Blough demonstrated proper hoof trimming technique. She handed the trimmers to the farm owner after explaining how to dig out dirt and rocks and shape the hoof so that it is flat and even on the base. The goats' checkup and hoof trimmings took approximately 30 minutes per animal. I watched as they received their annual vaccinations and were inspected for lice, which commonly latch onto farm animals this time of year. Nellie and Mo were declared free of the pests. The 15-year-old animal doctor, the 15-year animal doctor, I'm more than 15 years old, but I've been in practice 15 years, that's what that's trying to say, if I could read it correctly. The 15-year animal doctor discussed goat nutrition and feed with the farm owner. She suggested increasing the feed slightly to counter cold temperatures, but warned that he should keep monitoring their progress. Overall, the goats were in good condition, although some toes had begun curling. Blough left a complimentary pair of trimmers with the owner. They actually bought the trimmers, but they were brand new, and we had them for them because they were a kind that we like, that can be sharpened, and are reliable for being able to trim. So we sold them to them, but she didn't see the invoices, so minor detail. After completing some new client paperwork, we left the New Paris farm and drove back up to White Pigeon. The 41-year-old veterinarian studied biology and chemistry at Manchester University in North Manchester before graduating from Purdue University with a doctoral degree in veterinary medicine in 2007. Her first job was at a clinic that serviced large animal operations, primarily dairies, in New York, Vermont, and Massachusetts. After 4 years, she returned to her hometown of Goshen and participated in the veterinary medical loan repayment plan to pay off her student loans and launch her practice. I had no idea what all I was getting ready to learn, she said, shaking her head. I pretty much started my practice from scratch with my personal vehicle and the interest to have a job. The VMLRP determined the area in which she would service to be Berrien, Cass, Michigan, and Van Buren counties. She has since included counties in northern Indiana and other southern Michigan counties. Crossroads Food Animal Veterinary Service grew from a minivan stocked with equipment to a truck. Page turn. But this picture on the front, I want you to see. I think you can see it maybe. Classic. It's hard to see a bit. But it says, Dr. Emily Blough Wright checks a cow for pregnancy at a farm in Dowagiac. So of note is that this is at the Acko farm, and Dave Acko was a family friend, and my dad and him talked cows for years and years and years, and he was willing to let us come with a, news reporter, an extra person, and he was very gracious. So it was really special to have him as one of the clients because he was friends with my dad and knew my dad and registered cattle, and he was wonderful. So I'm going to update the caption to actually include his name and send it back to him, but he was a great sport. And his dad and mom were family friends of our family for years, and they could be seen at the Cass County Fair supporting kids in 4-H and family members showing cattle, and so that was really a special day for me. So the caption says, Dr. Emily Blough Wright checks a cow for pregnancy at a farm in Dowagiac. As she searches the cow's uterus for signs of a fetus, Taylor Martin assists by holding the video monitor, which was our ultrasound. Dr. Blough confirmed pregnancy by evaluating the placentomes along the uterus wall. Okay, page turn. So the top of this page says, veterinarians put in 12-hour days to serve clients. It's a multi-page story. Here is this part of there's a picture there. I don't know if you can see it. It's hard to see. It's me looking at a cow and her incision. So this part says, veterinarians put in 12-hour days to serve clients. Okay, so we were back here saying, she has since included counties in northern Indiana and other southern Michigan counties. Crossroads Food Animal Veterinary Service grew from a minivan stocked with equipment to a truck, and finally to the office building I was in that day. We went on to discuss the shortage of large animal veterinarians in the U.S. She listed a few reasons for this: consolidation of grade A dairy farms, demanding hours, the desire for work-life balance, the emotional toll, and the overall intensity of the job. Veterinarians have a turnover rate of about 17%, double that of a physician, which is about 7.5%, according to a 2020 American Veterinary Medical Association study. At the same time, total appointments booked grew by 4.5% from 2019 to 2020. A 2018 economic survey of equine practitioners shows that 55% of the 2012 graduating class dropped their veterinary membership within 4 years. Further, 33% of those graduating between 2012 and 2016 said they would change sectors if possible. It really is a lot of hard work. I mean, I've never been afraid of hard work. This job requires it. She said, sometimes it's mentally hard work, sometimes it's physically hard work, sometimes it's dealing with cold temperatures or hot temperatures or just emotionally difficult situations. I think all of those things are hard. Farm animal veterinarian work is demanding, she said. It is important to have a support group to navigate the tough days and to take time to relax and have fun. Even though I'm a solo practitioner, I'm never alone, she said. And that's very true. I'm super thankful for my village. And thank you all for being part of my village, because there are some days that some of you hear me vent, unload, processing something I'm upset about, and I'm very grateful for you all. It is important to set up boundaries to protect weekends and evenings. This job can swamp you, she said. Still, there are emergencies. I will do whatever I need to do if you are an established client and we have a great working relationship, she said. We arrived back at the office shortly after noon with just enough time for a short lunch before a client from White Pigeon brought in Bubbles the cat for a post-surgery checkup. We all ate a fast lunch. On the way back to the office, Dr. Blough ate a protein bar on the drive and immediately began processing paperwork and manning the phones upon her return. She also snuck in an avocado between phone calls. Bubbles arrived for his checkup at 12:30 p.m. The owner was concerned about a possible blockage in Bubbles' bladder. Dr. Blough checked his temperature and heart rate, then gave the owner some pretty litter to use to determine if he had blockage issues. It's a color-changing litter based on different things going on with body systems. If you have questions, I can fill you in. After a quick examination, Dr. Blough determined that Bubbles needed an anti-inflammatory medicine. She then prescribed amoxicillin to prevent a urinary tract infection, UTI, and instructed the owner to feed him wet food and get him to drink more fluids. The veterinary practitioner also gave Bubbles a deworming medicine. Soon after, we were on the road again, this time heading northwest. Dr. Blough grew up on a dairy farm and is most experienced working with cattle. She originally planned to only service bovines, but has expanded her practice to include all farm animals. I then asked which of the species she worked with was her favorite. Everyone always asks me that, she said with a smile and sideways glance. My answer is always the same. Babies. I love the babies. My dad used to call me his midwife. Near Dowagiac, we arrived at a farm with 4 cows requiring attention. The first 2 were heifer calves that needed vaccinations and dehorning. The calves first received their annual vaccinations. When vaccinating a cow, it is important to minimize the effects of the injection site on the quality of the meat. Therefore, vaccines are given in the neck within the injection triangle running from the top of the shoulder to the edge of the vertebrae to the nuchal ligament. After giving the calves vaccinations, Dr. Blough gave them both a shot of lidocaine near their budding horns. We then moved to the other side of the barn to care for the other 2 heifers while the lidocaine took effect. The 2 heifers needed pregnancy checks. To check for a pregnancy, a veterinarian dons a plastic sleeve and inserts the arm into the cow's birth canal, which is actually, it's the rectum, not birth canal, before reaching in with a probe. That's what Dr. Blough did, checking the monitor for positive indicators of pregnancy. Those indicators would include a fetus, the connection of the placenta to the uterus, and the clarity of the uterus and fluid inside. So we're basically reaching in and looking down to see on top of the uterus and the ovaries and the reproductive tract. More on that later, if you're interested. It's fine. As she searched for those indicators, her brow scrunched in concentration. The fetuses were past the pelvis in both bovines, so they did not show up on the monitor, but Dr. Blough was able to confirm pregnancy in both animals based on the age of the placentomes caruncles, which attached to fetal membranes. After declaring 2 positive pregnancies, it was time to dehorn the calves. With assistance from the farmer and Dr. Martin, Dr. Blough moved the first calf into a chute and secured her head between the bars to minimize the chance she would harm herself by pulling her head away during the procedure. Martin then handed the dehorning iron to Dr. Blough and stood by with a hot iron, which was used to cauterize the wound. While we were there, the air temperature reached a frosty 24 degrees. While the day was frigid, colder temperatures mean less bleeding, which leads to faster healing. After dehorning, Dr. Blough decided to also trim the feet of both calves to prevent toe curling. The farmer gave us a tour of his old dairy parlor, which still had the original glass tubing leading to the tank. He also provided us with burgers, which was the largest meal I witnessed Dr. Blough eat all day. You eat when you can, she said. From there, we drove. Those burgers were amazing. Thank you, Dave. Time out. Client calling. Okay. Sorry. I believe we were at the part when I said, you eat when you can. From there, we drove straight to a dairy in 3 Rivers to evaluate a cow which had recently undergone a difficult C-section. That was a beef farm. After flushing out an infection and climbing the fence to reach the injection triangle and administer medicine, all that was left was some paperwork. Dr. Blough told me about the C-section on the drive back to the office. The cow went into labor in January. Dr. Blough arrived at the farm, and at first everything seemed to go well. She was able to hook onto the calf right away to pull him out, but then she found that he was coming sideways and forward. We worked to turn him around, which was basically rotating him, not flipping him end for end, but just rotating him. But when she finally achieved that, she found he was too big for the cow's pelvis. Although the owner was out of town, Dr. Blough elected to C-section to save the cow and calf. That night, she said she could not sleep well after pondering what went wrong. 29 days later, the calf was bounding through the snow during my visit. Dr. Blough said that wasn't her hardest day on the job, though. She also reported one 23-hour day, after which she only got 1 hour of sleep, and then we went right on to the next day. But that C-section was terrible. It was just not a good experience. I thought the cow was going to die for sure, but she made it. As the day progressed, I noticed that Dr. Blough makes a quick read of both animals and people. It seemed to me that she could narrow down physical, mental, and emotional needs of people and animals shortly after arriving. We dropped off Martin, who had a family commitment at the office. Then Dr. Blough started a load of laundry, and we were off. Driving west, we arrived at a Niles farm. One of the owner's great white Pyrenees had a tumor the size of a small melon on the dog's front right leg. That morning, the old farm dog stopped eating, and its owner called Dr. Blough. The sun was setting as we arrived to euthanize the dog. Since Martin wasn't with us, I was deputized to assist in attaching the syringe to the IV. As we waited for the effects, Dr. Blough explained that the dog may feel dizzy as a side effect of the drug and discussed what a good dog she has been. The three of us stroked the dog's fur as she laid down. The owner worried that she may have waited too long to make the call, but Dr. Blough reassured her that the timing was good. The Manchester University graduate pulled out a stethoscope and pressed it to the side and chest of the Great White Pyrenees. After covering the dog in a fuzzy blanket, Dr. Blough hugged the tearful owner, reassuring her that she had done the right thing. There have definitely been times I've cried when euthanizing an animal, Dr. Blough said, but knowing she was giving the animal a peaceful ending and sparing the owners from watching the dog enter a state of anguish helps in cases like this. Being a veterinarian is not just about the animals, it's about their owners too. To wind down from a tough day and after animal deaths, she said she listens to upbeat music, spends time with friends, talks about tough cases with others, takes the time to be introspective, goes line dancing, and does yoga, among other things. Before leaving, Dr. Blough checked some of her other dogs and goats, giving suggestions for maintaining their health. With the day officially done, I removed my boot covers and returned them to Dr. Blough, but she had one more stop she wanted to make at Kay Kintai's farmhouse in Bristol. That's how my cell phone GPS Bluetooth says her name, so I know that's not right, but I'm so used to saying it that way to make my phone call her, so sorry, Kay. At Kay Kintai's farmhouse in Bristol to deliver medicine to a horse. We picked up my car on the way so we could part ways after the short stop. We arrived at approximately 8 p.m. The delivery was quick and painless. Kintai, a friend and co-worker of Dr. Blough's, accepted the syringe of medicine and administered it orally to her horse. It took a matter of seconds. By the end of the 12-hour day, I had a more complete picture of food animal veterinarians like Dr. Blough. Food animal veterinarians must be driven. Burnout is the most dangerous threat to the profession, so it is important for individuals to know their limits, set boundaries, and have a support group of friends and other veterinarians. As I headed home, thinking the job was finished, Dr. Blough said she was going to the post office. However, I suspected that she would return to the office to do some more work, and later she confirmed that my suspicion was correct, but said she continued working for only about 30 minutes before relaxing at home. So, that is the end of the article. It was very, very well done, and I thought Carolina was just a treat to have along. She was very inquisitive, asked great questions, and a very bright young journalist with a great career ahead of her, and hopefully will continue to serve our community and the agricultural community for years. So the last section just said Blough, soldiers on despite long hours. But if you're interested in seeing the print copy, we have copies at the office if you're in and you want to stop by. And sure, if you're over by my parents, you can talk to my mom about it too. She was definitely surprised to see that on the cover of Farmers Exchange. So that's it for now. We're going to get ready for a great week ahead of us. And I think you can see Carolina's name. Carolina. And the Farmers Exchange. So, a great small town ag newspaper. Have a great week. Thanks for sticking along for the ride.